Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Launchpad. I'm your host, Dave Kluge, and today I am joined, as usual, with two amazing guests. First of all, we have Scott Hanson from NFL RedZone, and he is going to get you nice and warmed up for this NFL season. You can catch RedZone next Sunday, September 11th, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern for 7 hours of commercial-free football. Scott's going to join us and talk about some of his favorite sleepers this season and tell us how he makes it through the week with this crazy job that he has. I'm also going to be joined with Joe Bryant, the owner and founder of Footballguys. We're going to talk about some of the tools that Footballguys has to offer, a little bit about his induction into the FSWA Hall of Fame. We're also going to talk about some tools that you can find at Footballguys, and of course, most importantly, how to keep your fantasy football league fun. Thank you so much for checking out this week's episode of The Launchpad. Who are you drafting number one overall in your fantasy football drafts this year? That and so much more on today's episode of The Launchpad. Scott, start us off here, man. Who are you drafting number one overall in fantasy?
Well, I have two leagues, and I've already had one draft. My second draft is coming up on Monday night, and we haven't established the draft order yet. So I could end up with the number one overall pick. And there's a certain part of me that hopes that I don't, actually, because Jonathan Taylor, if it's full PPR, Jonathan Taylor seems to be a safer pick, but Christian McCaffrey and those hamstrings and soft tissues of his are hanging out there. And you know, if he's right and he plays in 17 games for you, he's a league winner.
He's the winner, so Scott.
Those two. I'm not going wide receiver number one, regardless, full PPR or whatever. How can Cooper Kupp put up those same numbers? And Devontae Adams, we haven't seen him in this offense yet. He's an awesome player. But I'm going between one of those two guys. And if you want to swing for the fences, get yourself some CMC.
So here's how I'll say this, and you can steal it and you can plug this on a show later today. If you're drafting Jonathan Taylor, you're playing not to lose. If you're drafting Christian McCaffrey, you are playing to win, and there's a difference.
I agree with that. Now, here's the deal, though. I always tell people you cannot lose. I don't think you cannot win your league in round one very often, right? But you can lose your league in round one.
Absolutely.
So taking a guy who's missed multiple games over the course of the last couple of years is a bit of a risk. And if CMC, God forbid, but if he twists an ankle or pulls a hammy in week 3 and you were at number one, that means, depending obviously how many teams you have in your league, your top pick is number 20 something, 20, maybe even towards the 30. Like that's a risk. So the league winners are the guys. Who's Cooper Kupp this year? Who's Cooper Kupp? Who's going in the 4th to 8th round that's going to be a first round pick next year? And of course, that's the gold mine that everyone's trying to filter through right now.
So you figure that out. You let us know, Scott.
Yeah, right. I'll try. I had LaVisca Chenault last year as one of my sleepers.
He was not it, Scott.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let me throw one name out there for you, Scott, because there's a guy that I have been drafting in the mid-rounds that I have been hyping up all offseason long. Some people think he's going to be a bust. I think this guy is going to be this year's, maybe not Cooper Kupp. I'm not talking 2,000 yards, but somebody that you can draft late that's going to be serviceable. Allen Lazard. Is he going to be the wide receiver one for the Green Bay Packers, or is this pure fool's gold?
In my other league that I was telling you about, the league I've already had a draft in, I took Aaron Rodgers as the 14th quarterback taken.
Wow.
14th. Now, obviously, Rodgers, hardly gets any rushing yards. He'll get a sneaky couple of rushing touchdowns here and there, but you just let the back-to-back MVP and a guy who rolls out of bed and gets 35 plus touchdowns passing fall to me there. So I hope that Allen Lazard and the young kids are going to step up. Could he be a league winner? Look, if I tell you that Rodgers is going to turn him into a 12 touchdown guy this year, is that unreasonable? No, not at all. Not at all. My other league that I'm going to be playing in, actually, James Jones, the former Packer and former Raider, is going to be drafting in that draft as well. Rodgers and James Jones linked up for, and James was a very, very solid player. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Led the league in touchdowns one year. Yep. So Rodgers can do things with a variety of people. He does not have Devontae Adams or any facsimile thereof this year, but why not Lazard as a double digit touchdown scorer and maybe 100 catch guy this year? Why not?
Well, I could keep asking you about fantasy football questions, but I feel like that's wasting both of our times. Joe's got some questions that he wants to ask you that I think are a little bit more behind the scenes, what it's like prepping and things like that. So, Joe, go ahead and ask Scott what some of the things that you're wondering.
Yeah, that was mine, Scott. First, everyone tells you, and I'll echo the same, your show's so fun to watch. You do such a great job there. I wonder, like, what's the week leading up to like? What do you prep different games? Are you looking at different stuff? Are you just trying to stay on top of the key stuff, or what's the week before look like?
Well, you guys as broadcasters know that the majority of the work that we do is not right here in the camera when you hear us and see us, but it's preparing to talk extemporaneously, in my case, for 7 straight hours. And not knowing the variables that could fall into place, but not knowing the actualities until it happens right in front of you.
Right.
So yeah, my job basically is not just performing, but it's prepping. And the average week will look like this. So Sunday I do Red Zone. I come home, I plop myself on the TV, or I plop myself on the couch, put on the TV. By the way, do you want to see, for the audience that's watching this?
Absolutely.
Here's my TV setup. I've got 5 TVs on my media wall right here.
Yeah, that'll work.
I've got some news and sports, and then I've got Batman versus Superman on the screen right there. But
this is doing it right
of an NFL Network preseason game here. But so I'll plot myself. I watch Sunday Night Football. I watch all the highlights. Then I watch the highlight shows on 2 of those monitors: NFL Network's highlight show, ESPN's highlight show, to see if we missed anything that was consequential, showing you live on Red Zone. Monday night, do the same thing. Watch all the highlight shows and the recap shows and the shows that update you on injuries. Tuesday night, our excellent research team at NFL Media sends me a packet. They send all the on-camera talent a packet, an email. It's like 100 pages, 200 pages, sometimes depending on if it's really thick, of all the recap from the week before and all of the look ahead to the week ahead. So Tuesday, I start getting into that. Wednesday, I put together my own spreadsheets. And interesting that you asked me. I've got a sample from last year. I put together, let me see if the camera can show this here, my own spreadsheets. Where's the camera here? Of standings, quarterback numbers, breakdowns, statistical breakdowns of every statistical category, kicker stats, defense, turnovers, trends, you name it, leaders in rushing, passing, receiving, everything. So I've got it at my fingertips. I'm an old man. I still like hard copy paper in my hands. And that's the only thing that I'll have with me right in front of me as I'm hosting NFL Red Zone. Then it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, looking at injury reports, listening to open locker room, see if anyone said anything that's inflammatory or bulletin board material that I can do a callback of on Sunday. And then Saturday, I lock myself right here in my house in Los Angeles, put on the best 5 college football games that are going on those 5 monitors, and go to bed, try to go to bed early. I usually can never sleep on Saturday night. Alarm clock goes off at 5 a.m., and then we're rocking and rolling come kickoff time.
Living the life, man. I think what surprises me, you're putting together all of your own cheat sheets, all those spreadsheets, you're doing it yourself.
It's like,
the exercise of doing it helps, right?
100%. Emeril Lagasse probably still, he has, 14 sous chefs that he could go tell, do this, do that, the other thing. But if you're going to be a great chef, I think you got to put your fingers in the dough yourself. So I like putting together all my numbers and then highlighting them and compiling it so it saturates my mind so that I can have better recall when I need something on Sunday afternoon.
Well, this year while watching Red Zone, I'm going to be listening extra close because I want to hear that paper turning. I want to know that you're doing it old school. When I hear you flipping through the papers, I know that we got some good information coming our way.
My voice is so darn loud and booming that it's hard to hear. It's a good thing that's hard to hear anything else going on in the studio other than Big Scott going about some touchdown.
Well, you answered the question. That was the next question. You almost answered it already, Scott. How much of this is you being a professional, just being able to do what you do for any sport? And how much of it is you just love football? And I think you just told us a lot of it's you loving football.
Yeah. I mean, I am a professional. I trained to be a sportscaster.
Right.
The dream was to get and become an NFL sportscaster because football is by far and away my favorite sport, has been since I knew the word sports when I was a kid. I don't think I could do 7 hours of commercial-free U.S. Open coverage.
Right.
I couldn't do 7 hours of commercial-free, whatever.
I'm trying to hear your voice on a golf broadcast, and it just doesn't fit.
You would not work.
I've been asked to do all kinds of stuff because people want to tap into that red zone energy, I guess, But no, it's a combination of me being thorough and professional and having professional pride, even to the point where I don't ever want to get caught with my pants down.
Right.
And it happens. I mess up a name or a fact or a stat, or I conflate two things that have happened in a game. But I want my free throw percentage, to mix a sports metaphor. Right. I want my free throw percentage to be 96, 98%. Yeah.
Well, and I'm on a small platform, and I make one little mistake, and my Twitter mentions blow up. But I can't even imagine if you're on RedZone and you say the wrong player's name or something. The type of
welcome to the club. Yeah. Welcome to the club. Yeah.
It's time for the Sleeper Start of the Week, powered by Sleeper.
So, Scott, I've been asking somebody this question, every single person that's come on this offseason, and I got to ask you, who is one sleeper? And sleeper, it's a very broad term, but who's a guy that probably isn't on everybody's radar that you think could have a pretty good season this year?
Well, Dameon Pierce is already going to the Hall of Fame. So, has this guy gone from, a name of like, oh, wait, who did they draft for the team that people expect to be the 30th, 31st, or 32nd team in the NFL to, oh, you got to snatch him in the 4th round now or something, or otherwise you're not going to get him.
Ahead of Breece Hall. He's going ahead of Breece Hall now. What are we doing?
It's just fascinating. He's most likely going to get all the touches there, and he's been productive. I scooped up Brian Robinson before the terrible, unfortunate incident in Washington, D.C. I think Brian Robinson, it sounds like he's got a legit shot to play not only this season, but maybe be back sooner than later. If you want another one that it's going to be like, I don't think he's a sleeper per se, but a team, and I'll go back to Dameon Pierce's team, a team that's going to be trailing, throwing the ball, and a number 1 wide receiver, Brandon Cooks, is going to have a nice year, fantasy-wise. He's going to have a nice year. I don't know if you guys consider him a sleeper or not. I mean, obviously he's been around the NFL and people know his name. But in terms of someone who's going to get underdrafted, and I think, apologies to all the Texans fans that are watching this, I think some fantasy players underdraft guys because they're like, do I really want to watch this offense? Right. Do I really want to, hitch my wagon to this? Dude, this is business. This is business.
100%.
How many targets is he going to see if the Texans are down 28-10 in the 4th quarter? He's going to see 10 targets in a quarter.
Well, Davis Mills could do the same thing. I mean, he's better than he's getting credit for.
Yes, to me, he was the second best rookie quarterback last year behind Mac Jones, and he might take a second-year leap.
So, if you look at what he did last year, he was on pace for, had he started a full season in the games that he started, he would have passed for over 4,000 yards last year. I don't think people realize how good Davis Mills is because the team wasn't winning and it's the Houston Texans. But I'm with you. Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, Davis Mills, I'm buying into that whole pass catching offense. So
why not? It's going to be like some of the Detroit Lions teams in years past where it's like, wow, these guys ended up with good, like Golden Tate had a huge, if you remember, Golden Tate had a huge 100+ catch season with the Lions when the Lions weren't any good on the field, wins and losses record, but they had to throw. He was their guy. He ended up being a nice player. I also like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Not that he's a sleeper, but everyone saw what he did in the last 5 weeks of the season.
Right.
He could be a nice pickup where people aren't going to draft him. Where's he going on your ADP? Is he going in round
5th, 6th round?
Yeah, I was going to say 5, but
he could see 120, 130 targets. Yeah. Now, before we log off, it's really important. You got to let everyone know where can they find you on Sundays? What channel? What time are you going to be on? Yeah. And give us 7 hours of commercial-free football. Let's get the whole shebang right here.
Well, to those of you who have never seen NFL RedZone, welcome to Earth. We like football around here, and sign up for it. Go to NFL.com/RedZone. You'll find all of our providers and partners and whatnot. There's ways to get it on your phone, on your tablet, obviously in your big screen in your house. And 1 o'clock for 7 straight hours on Eastern time, 50, 60, 70 touchdowns.
Absolutely. Cannot wait for it. We are going to be there in just over a week. Scott, thank you so much for the time. I know this is a busy time of year, and it really means a lot that you were able to come onto our channel today. Just want to remind everybody, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/footballguys, where you can see the launch pad every single week with great guests. We actually just had NFL Network's Marcus Grant on last week and did some deep dives into fantasy football. But Scott, as always, thanks for the time. I know you were a busy guy. we'll let you run. But thanks a lot for making that today.
Great to be with you guys. Enjoy the season.
Thanks, buddy.
See you Sunday, September 11th.
There you go.
We'll be there. Take it easy, Scott.
Bye.
See ya.
Well, Joe, I don't know about you, but if I wasn't already amped up for football before that, I definitely am now after getting
What
Scott
are you doing if you don't get excited listening to that?
Yeah, I mean, and now I'm lucky enough just to have you for a little bit.
There you go.
Talk a little bit more about fantasy football.
And I don't have anything.
You think you just drop your voice a couple octaves and really boom so we can keep that energy going?
Right. Keep it going there. Take a shot of espresso here.
But Joe, obviously, thrilled to have you on the show. And you were on a while back when we first connected, way before Footballguys. That was just a glimmer in my eye at that point in time. I was hoping that someday I'd get a chance to do anything on Footballguys. And since then, it has just been a really fun experience over the last couple of years. But what I want to start off with, congratulations, first of all. You were just recently inducted into the FSWA Hall of Fame. And a lot of that has to do with the brand and the company that you built over at Footballguys. But your research on value-based drafting was groundbreaking. And I think that also has something to do with why you were inducted into the Hall of Fame. It has become a staple of fantasy analysis. People write articles about value-based drafting anymore and don't even tip their hat to you. It's just, the way people draft nowadays. So talk to us a little bit about value-based drafting, how you came up with the idea, and how fantasy managers can use that in their drafts.
Well, thank you, buddy. You're kind. This came 20 plus years ago, Dave, and actually from playing fantasy baseball, and it works the same exact way. But what it struck me was that the way we talk about players, it's always by position. Just like with Scott, we say Amon-Ra St. Brown is a wide receiver X, and this guy's a top 3 quarterback, and you make our list by positions. But you don't draft that way. You draft overall. You don't have a quarterback draft and a wide receiver draft and a running back draft. When you're on the clock, you have the whole player pool to choose from. And I just found that we were doing a really poor job as an industry of guiding people on that overall. It's easy to say that Aaron Rodgers is better than Davis Mills and should be drafted ahead of him. But what about Aaron Rodgers versus Jonathan Taylor or Christian McCaffrey, or where does he fall into these other players, or a mid-level running back? What's it all worth? Where does it fit? And it really got to me it's based on 2 things. Number one, you got to determine how many points a player is going to score. And that means you got to do stat projections. And we go through every single player and project them down to the last yard and score and reception and carry. And it sucks. It's a lot of work. It takes a ton of time to do. It's really hard. But without that, you're just guessing then. If you want to say that this guy's better than that guy, well, tell me why. So we do every bit of stat projection to start with to get a points base. And then it comes down to determining what their value is. And value is really like anything else. It's supply and demand. It's no different than collectible art or diamonds or cars or whatever. It's how many of them there are and how much demand there is for those things. And like anything, the higher demand will drive it up, the more supply will drive it down. And so what you're looking at is it becomes all points aren't created equal. You take a points, you might project a wide receiver for 200 points and then a tight end for 170 points. The reality is, though, there may be lots of wide receivers that are going to score about that, but very few tight ends that are going to score that. So a tight end scoring 170 is more valuable than a wide receiver scoring 200. And it's funny. We always did that in other things, Dave. We always knew that with kickers. Kickers score typically a ton of points in all the leagues, but nobody drafted them early because the supply was there. There were a ton of them. You could wait and get a good one. And in baseball, that came about back then. It was catchers, and I haven't played fantasy baseball in a while. But you say a catcher, it's still that way. A catcher that could hit 18 home runs was super valuable compared to a first baseman who might hit 30. And because there were a lot of first basemen, there weren't many catchers, and so it's the same exact thing. So we do that. It's really evaluation against how that player performs against his peers. Somebody's going to be drafting the worst tight end at that position or the worst starting tight end. Someone in their league is going to have that. And the difference between the good ones and then the worst starters or the average starters is really where it determines the value.
And the nice thing now over at Footballguys, I mean, you brought so many new people on staff over the last few years that it's taken a lot of the subjectivity out of it. I mean, now we have these consensus projections where we have how many people are going into that now? I believe it's
5 different people doing projections.
On
offensive, and then IDP, and probably at 10 total.
Yeah.
But you get a lot of value. I mean, a lot of people doing it, which helps around the edges. You can get in this person, you're not just depending on one person's projections. And we think having multiple people doing detailed stat projections is a real asset.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the other tools over at Footballguys as well, because everyone knows about the Rate My Team. I think that's the first thing everyone does after their fantasy football draft is rate my fantasy football team, and they end up on Footballguys website. But
and they save it if we give them a bad ranking. I get those. Those come back to me in December, Dave. We're like, hey, you told me I only had a chance here, and I'll say with good management, yeah, it's up to you. Good job, buddy. You navigated the waiver wire well.
And we talked about that yesterday on the mailbag show, actually, that's one of my favorite things, because we talk about how important in-season management is. And we're not just giving you an A, B, C, D, or an F. I mean, we are telling you exactly how you're going to do with different types of in-season management. So that makes a huge difference. But that's the tool that everybody knows about. I've got to say, in the 2 years that I've been at Footballguys now, I've found out about so many other tools, like the Draft Dominator and the Historical Stat Finder and these other things. What are some of the other tools that you really like that have been developed over at Footballguys?
The two big ones, Dave, are the ones you said, the Draft Dominator, and that really is our ultimate tool for helping you crush your draft. It does all those complicated calculations and stat projections I talk about on the value-based drafting. We do all that for you. We project every player. We put your scoring, we take their stats and then put them through your particular scoring system, so you get a real value on your league, not a generic league. Because the beauty of fantasy football is you can do it your way. So if you want to have a crazy scoring system, knock yourself out, we handle all of that. And so it does the stat projections. And then it also, the Draft Dominator is even a little different than most in that it adjusts dynamically as the draft unfolds. So if you have a run on quarterbacks and all of a sudden they're getting scarce, it allocates for that or values that. If you have a team that already carries over 3 keepers and it adjusts the player pool that way, it tells you those players are no longer in there. It really just does. It's like any other, it harnesses the power of a computer to make adjustments on the fly that are super powerful. It's almost unfair. I had someone today email me and said their league wasn't going to let them use the Draft Dominator anymore. And I'm like, I guess I'll take that as a compliment. The next thing, the other big thing is that the sister tool that goes with it is the League Dominator, and pretty much the same way. It'll sync to your league. And the huge advantage there is instead, and especially if you're playing multiple leagues, it's incredibly helpful. And that instead of looking, you get your idea, here's a player you want to pick up on the waiver wire, and it instantly tells you who's available on your league and how we rank them. So here's our stat projections for the rest of the year, and it'll highlight all the players right in front of you that are available. Makes it so much easier to go. And sometimes you'll find a league makes an error. Somebody drops somebody that maybe they shouldn't have, or they gave up too early. And where you might be scrounging for everyone else's consensus, waiver wire pickups, there might actually be somebody that is even above that, and it'll point that out right in front of you. So those two tools those are the major ones. And then, like I say, we do a ton of data mining with the Stat Finder. That's a big one. I think that's the one you actually had told me you were into, and snap counts and all these things. And every day I find somebody that tells me there's one little piece of Footballguys is like their favorite thing. They love it. They live on that page. And it really is a variety. We have got a lot of different tools.
Well, yeah, I love the snap counts page, which I didn't even mention, but I spend so much time just perusing that page in season, because it really helps you get an idea of some of these muddled situations. You watch a game and you might think, oh, this guy's getting a lot of touches. But then you look at it and realize, well, actually his teammate, who I am not that excited in, is the one getting all the snaps. So I spend a lot of time perusing through that snap count page. Now, Joe, a couple other questions I have for you here. You talk all the time about keeping fantasy football fun. And that's something that I think you and I both connected on, because that's my thing as well. It's fun to win money, and this, smack talk and all that is fun. But at the end of the day, it's the, getting together with buddies and drinking a beer, which really makes fantasy football fun. What can fantasy football commissioners do to keep their leagues as fun as possible?
I love that question, Dave. And I think, you're 100% right. Our industry today has changed so much from where it was when I started. I mean, back then in 2000, there was no DFS, or there was, obviously we didn't have any
prop bets.
I'd say there wasn't any betting going on, but there wasn't any legal betting going on. And so nowadays, there's so many different ways to play, and so many of them are kind of you in front of the monitor doing your thing. And what I grew up with and what I love about fantasy football is you and 9 buddies, or you and 11 buddies, or whatever it is in your league, your local league, keeping people together, making friends, talking smack, having goofy punishment bets, having goofy celebrations for the winners. and just bringing people together. And I get emails every single day from someone that'll talk about, they love their league, but it's not so much, I mean, winning's always important, but the main thing they get about it's a way for their buddies to stay together. Their buddies, they may be across the country now. They may not even live in the same place anymore, but it's this thing that binds them together. And I love that. So when I talk about how to make it more fun, it's like anything that furthers that kind of connection. Be it, I always say, I don't, it doesn't matter if it's a group text chat on a Discord, on a WhatsApp, it doesn't matter. Just find something that your league can have constant communication. A healthy league. You show me your league's group platform for talking, and I'll tell you how healthy they are. and the good ones, as just blow up. I mean, that's the kind of stuff. It's trying to it's being intentional. Like any friendship, it's funny, Dave. It's not really any different than any other relationship. You have to be thoughtful about it and be intentional, but like just almost look at everything through the lens of how can this be more fun? What can we do? Can we get together for a game during the season? Can we get together for a game every week? Can we have the draft in a fun place? Can we have a goofy, like I said, punishment? And those have really gotten to be fun over the years. Those have kind of taken off in popularity. But yeah, so stuff like that, anything that makes it more fun. And it's very little. Prize pool is nice. It's always nice to win some money, but that's way down the list of why most people play fantasy sports.
So, and I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion among a lot of the audience, but we are 13 years running in my home league. We started this league right after we got out of high school as a great way to stay connected with each other. And now we stand up in each other's weddings and we're godfathers for each other's children. And I mean, we've been keeping this league going for a long time. And I think that that's one of the best things is just keeping a league going because it has developed into its own thing. I mean, we are implementing rules and punishments that we never would have even thought of 10 years ago, but it just kind of comes up organically. And now here I am, this weekend, I'm flying back home to Chicago and I have friends coming in from Arizona and Nebraska and Florida and people coming in from all over the country. And this is what keeps us together. And, the group chat is buzzing all the time. And that's what I love about fantasy football, analyzing the game and playing against strangers and making new friends and making money is fun, but something about that home league that just keeps you all together. There's something really special about it.
It's the best.
You kind of already answered here, but one of the other questions that I had written down, and you can just kind of keep with the same topic, but what is it that you love about fantasy football? What do you love most about fantasy football?
I think it's that, Dave. It's that it's a way, and it's really, lots of times you'll see something and you'll have something happen and you get caught up in it and you realize, this thing wasn't really about that thing. It's about something bigger. And so in my opinion, a lot of fantasy football is really not about necessarily the actual, first downs and touchdowns. It's about that connection. And so I just love that part of it. I mean, it's in the longer you do it, the more intentional you have. I mean, our model on the cover of our website is my buddy Casey, and that's my buddy he's in our league, and that's our league trophy he's got on his shoulder there. And you just get into that kind of just super fun stuff. We had another guy in our league. His part of him winning the championship was that he got to pick someone from our league to walk his mom down the aisle in the wedding, his wedding. So it was like just so fun. I mean, you get in, like we were all crying at the wedding, and it was like just funny for it. But it was just awesome. It was like, what an honor for this guy to get to do that. And so all of that stuff, just at the end of the day, that's what you're going to remember. I mean, you remember, the fun and winning, and that certainly matters. I don't want to discount that one bit because that's how we have a business. But right up there on an importance to me is how we have fun at this, how we further that. And that's really something this year we're leaning into more. We've got shirts coming out that are the draft local and just how you figure out. Kevin Murray is doing a bunch of stuff for us on how do we increase engagement. There you go. One beer away from talking about sleeper tight ends. I mean, you just do all that stuff that just encourages the fun factor and lifts it up. And to me, and I'm absolutely certain we are leaving money on the table as a company by not leaning into some of these other areas. I mean, there's a ton of money to be made in some of these other things, and we're not ignoring that, but that's just not our passion. And so our passion is the local league and the fun and the community. And to me, that just feels right. And that's where we're going to stay.
And I don't know if I've told you this or not, Joe, but we implemented this punishment into my league a while back, and it's a weekly punishment. The lowest scorer every single week.
Every week?
Every single week, whoever scores the lowest amount of points, what they have to do is videotape themselves chugging a beer. And then after they chug the beer, they have to give their projections or predictions for the next week, the individual matchups in the fantasy league. And when we started doing this a few years ago, it was fun. Now we're all in our 30s. And now the fun part is, watching people just try to hold a beer down after chugging it in their mid 30s. But then, it just makes for some really fun videos. We've had people, last year, right before Christmas, somebody took "Twas the Night Before Christmas" and did "Twas the Night Before the Fantasy Playoffs" and wrote an entire poem. And I mean, we have just really developed into a fun thing, and you can't even really explain it. You just got to be a part of it.
Right.
So if you're in a league, keep it going, do whatever you can to nurture those friendships and keep it going.
Absolutely.
But the last question I have before we sign off here, Joe, we are a week away from fantasy football, less than a week away by the time this airs. This is going to air on Friday, and then 6 days from then, it's going to be kickoff. What are you most looking forward to this NFL season?
I think I'm looking forward most to, and last year was a little bit of this, but just a year that feels almost like normal. With where we had, and the NFL did an amazing job of navigating the incredibly difficult, stuff to get through where we could have a season. But it certainly didn't feel normal that first year, and it hasn't really felt normal much since. But this year it feels to me like it's almost 100% back, and I think I'm excited about a normalcy of it there. And it just, the drama of the league. We joked the other day that if this thing was like a script, I'm not sure you would believe it sometimes, of the player that gets traded and this guy comes back and he's just, and it's almost like unbelievable the storylines they have going. But I am so excited that this crop of young players, coming in is so exciting. And then we got the Tom Brady's and the Aaron Rodgers on the other end of the age spectrum. I love that. I love seeing different ways to succeed. I love seeing quarterbacks can run around, and I love seeing, a Brady or a Herbert or somebody that just stands, is more a pocket guy. And I just love the different ways they can go. I love seeing a coach like Bill Belichick that is kind of the taskmaster, and you have a guy like Sean McVay that's the best friend, and it's like there's so many different ways.
Dan Campbell, who's just a few years removed.
That's right. And so I love seeing that. I love that there's no one set way, that it seems like everybody has. It can get boring that way when everybody's a carbon copy of one, type. I just love the variety, and I think it's shaping up for a great season.
Yeah, I cannot wait. And like I said, just less than a week away. So at this point, most people probably have the majority of their fantasy football drafts. We're not giving you any hard-hitting sleepers or anything here. We're just talking about how excited we are. Joe, thank you so much for making the time, because I know this is a very busy time of year. Let everyone know where they can find you on social media, but also where they can get themselves a Footballguys membership, Discord, all those fun things that we're doing.
Thank you, buddy. Everything for us lives at footballguys.com. You can find everything from top to bottom there, and our premium subscriptions are really where our best stuff is, and that's all right there on the website. For me on Twitter, I'm football_guys. But we're everywhere. This time of year and most of the time of the year we're out there. So just come on. We've got you. The easiest way to get started with us is we do a daily email update that's free. You can sign up right there on the site for that, right at the top. But we'll deliver the news to you each day. We summarize the story, tell you what it means, and give you a ton of information right there. And that's our goal. Is we got one simple goal: to help y'all win more at fantasy football.
Yeah, and the one thing that you didn't notice, or didn't mention, I should say, you don't have to pay for the whole year up front now. This is the first year where we're doing monthly billing as well. So if you just want to, try it out for a few months and kind of, dip your toes in the water and see what Footballguys has to offer, check it out at footballguys.com, because not only is the content amazing, but the tools and everything else that you get there, 100% the best bang for your buck that you can get if you are looking for premium fantasy football content. Well, thank you so much, Joe. I will be back next week. Just a reminder that you can find me on Twitter at Dave Kluge, and then be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/footballguys. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in. If you have not already, be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/footballguys. Drop us a thumbs up on this video if you enjoy it, and shoot me a DM on Twitter if you've got any feedback. You can find me at Dave Kluge. That's Kluge. Thank you so much for watching this episode, and I will see you next week.